We're going to go ahead and focus on this next segment here because we are really excited to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Sasha DiGiulian, to the show. Now, listen, Alicia did a phenomenal interview with her. She held it down while I was busy talking about the men's side of things. And I want to go ahead and give some cliff notes before we go ahead and roll this clip here, or this interview rather. Third woman in the world to accomplish the grade of climbing rather. So first North American woman to climb the grade of 9A 5.4D, which is recognized as the hardest sports climb ever and the ever achieved by a woman. Third woman in the world to accomplish that grade. Has also accomplished multiple first ascents and 28 first female ascents around the world. Now, I'm not afraid of heights, but I tried rock climbing once. Was not for me. So it was not for me. But she has a documentary coming out on June 18th titled Here to Climb on HBO Max, which chronicles her journey as she looks to make a series of female first ascents. Absolutely love a trailblazer, love a woman knocking down barriers. Let's roll this. And Alicia, I want you to go ahead and kind of recap everything that you experienced during this interview.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to share this interview with you, not only because of, she has an amazing film coming out about her life that she has compiled over the last 4 years, but also just her tenacity.
Yeah.
Sasha has accomplished so many things in climbing, and not only in climbing, but in business. I mean, literally, her mind just does not stop. She's always thinking about the next move and how she can up the sport and just up her profile and everything that she does. She even bounced back from 2 hip surgeries to climb again, which, listen, it's hard to even climb the first time, to even get up there and do all of the things that she accomplished.
But I can attest to that.
But then after, yeah, no, I mean, I can't even imagine. But then after the hip surgeries that she had, fighting back, having to learn to walk 3 times, just coming back and being like at the top of her sport again, it's just a phenomenal conversation. And please listen. Tell me what. Okay.
We're good.
Hey, it's Alicia J, and we're here with an amazing interview on We Need to Talk Now. I'm so excited because we have with us a world champion, a USA champion, the first woman to free climb the north face of Eiger Mountain, which is crazy. Columbia University graduate, don't leave that off. The one and only iconic rock climber, Sasha DiGiulian. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. And I'll enter by saying, because it's captured in the film, a route on the north face of the Eiger, not the first woman to climb the north face of the Eiger.
Okay, so can you give us the distinction on that? Because
yep,
we need to know.
I've got a lot of heat for that. It's the first woman to climb a route on the north face of the Eiger versus first woman to climb the north face of the Eiger.
Okay, got you. So for everybody that doesn't know about rock climbing, there are 3 types, right? Can you break down the types for us just before we even start the conversation about every amazing thing that you do?
Yeah, so in competition climbing, there's sport climbing, which is also classified as lead climbing. There's bouldering, and then there's speed climbing. And in speed climbing, it's a head-to-head race. Fastest one up the wall wins. Bouldering, you have a set of climbs. And so you may have 5 different boulder problems is what they're called. And boulders are typically around 15 feet. You don't have a rope, but you have a gymnastics pad underneath you, which in climbing we call a crash pad. So if you fall down to the crash pad. And then in sport climbing or lead climbing, you have a rope, but you have taller walls. So like around 60-foot walls inside where you have a rope. If you fall into that rope. What I do now is big wall free climbing is my main focus. And free climbing is by use of your hands and feet only with a rope for safety versus free soloing, which is without a rope entirely, which, we've seen that film maybe with Alex Honnold doing that, where if you fall, the risk is certain fatality. 99.9% of the time. There's also ice climbing. There is a myriad of different types of climbing, but those three really are what competition climbing is. And then big wall free climbing is the subject of the film Here to Climb.
Well, listen, as somebody who hardly climbs a flight of stairs, I am just literally in awe of everything that you do. And you're talking about, the type of climbing that you do. And this might be hard to pick because you've done so many things, but if you could pick one of your accomplishments that stands out the most that you would say is just like at the top for you, what would that be and why?
That's a great question. Right now, I'm inclined to say that my recent climb of Ryu, which was the hardest big wall achieved by a team of women, an expedition that I led after having double hip reconstruction surgery, is certainly a climb at the top of my proudest achievements, because it came on the heels of so much uncertainty, on having this near career ending injury, on not knowing if I would come back from it, and also coming back in such an engaging and empowering way with two incredible women that I climbed this route with, named Brett Harrington and Matilda Suderland. And the whole expedition was just very beautiful and challenging and full of so much exciting adventure. I look to it as a really engaging and empowering achievement.
Well, you talked a little bit, you kind of threw it in there that you had double hip surgery. I mean, I know that it was, from doing research, it was the comeback that you had to even come back to even climb was just, it had me awestruck, to be honest. You had 5 surgeries. You had to learn how to walk again 3 times, at least 3 times. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and how it made you a better climber?
I had really chronic hip pain, which I didn't know where it was coming from, that got worse and worse over the course of 3 years. And I had a big expedition that I was planning to go down to Mexico to climb a route called Logical Progression, which is a 3,000 foot climb that no woman had ever done before. And leading up to it, I contacted a surgeon that one of my sponsors put me in touch with, because I needed to get a cortisone shot, because what was happening was my femur head on both sides was essentially popping out of the socket. And I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do a lot of the approaches to climbs that often include big hikes, because my lower body was so unstable. And when I asked for the cortisone shot, being a good doctor and all, they were like, we need to do an MRI so that we know what we're working with. And when I went in for the MRI, it was right before I was going down for this big expedition. And the surgeon essentially said, hey, you have like 2 to 6 months before you need total hip replacement, because you've shredded through all of your connective tissue that's holding your femur head in place. You have too shallow of a socket, and you are on the brink of bone on bone rubbing, which essentially would completely destroy whatever I had left within my hips. So what I was diagnosed with was I had double hip dysplasia, which is a congenital condition that I was likely born with, but I've been climbing for, at this point, 25 years, and started competing when I was 7. So at that stage, about 20 plus years of constant, really high demand and grind on my hips. And what was a part of the surgery of double PAO was essentially 5 surgeries over the course of 18 months that included breaking my pelvic bone on both sides into 4 pieces, shaving down the femur head, making a deeper socket, and sewing together all of the connective tissue. Then in that process, my abs are cut out of my body multiple times. The sciatic nerve is isolated to avoid paralysis. It's a series of very big surgeries, 2 of which were 10-hour open hip, which of course I was asleep for. And the uncertainty that came with it was no surgeon that I met with ever knew a female athlete or male athlete that had gone through this and returned to being a professional athlete. And so that was kind of the big uncertainty change that the film really takes a deep dive into as well.
Wow. I mean, it would be hard enough for people to even get back to walking, let alone climbing, obviously, at the level that you're climbing. What lesson out of all the lessons that you learned during that period of time did you take into what you're doing now? Like, what is the one lesson that you would tell somebody to help them with their life that you learned during that time?
The lesson that I would say is focus on what you can control, because my life as a professional athlete is constantly challenged by uncontrollable variables, including inclement weather conditions and every single which way that things can go sideways on an expedition. And those same parameters kind of apply to uncertain times in your life. I really zoned in on defining what brought me meaning in my life during a time when exercise and climbing couldn't be a part of it. So that was when I rolled up my sleeves and I wrote my first coming of age memoir book, Take the Lead. And I started my first company, Sun Bars, which is a nutrition bar company. But I really needed that purpose, and I needed to focus on my other passions in life in order to get through this period of time where I didn't know what the other side of the tunnel looked like.
Well, another passion that you've had for the last 4 years is really capturing your story. Here to Climb is coming out on June 18th, which is amazing. Everybody should go see it because your story is phenomenal. Why did you want to capture your story and why release it now? Like, what's so important about the timing of now?
Women are reaching new heights in climbing and in sports overall. It's incredible. I was at a bar the other night and the WNBA was on TV. Like, what a great moment. And I also like to say, not just a moment, like, women's sports are here to stay. And my career wouldn't exist without the women that came before me, like Lynn Hill, who's in the film, who really showed to me at a young age that you can be passionate about something and make it your career. And so I hope that this film just serves some fraction of the inspiration that I really garnered from the women that came before me as a source of inspiration for being your most authentic self and for challenging yourself and for overcoming obstacles and for really living in that space of duality of whatever that manifests for you. For me, it was always feeling like an outsider, as wanting to be feminine and wanting to be strong and not really knowing my place within the outdoor industry because I was constantly cutting against the grain and upsetting people by my sheer existence of painting my nails pink and having, blonde hair and doing things that were really challenging for both men and for women.
Well, you talk about being authentic, and we know that a lot of times on social media, especially, it's hard to be authentic. It's hard to be your true self because people always have something to say. And I know that you've dealt with that a lot. You're laughing because you're like, yes, I have. Absolutely. You've dealt with that a lot. You've had to really, really kind of like talk to the haters, talk back to them, like stand up for yourself. And what do you give, or what do you say, or how do you give advice to people who are dealing with the same thing?
Cyberbullying is a real issue online and offline. I think that bullying in general, I have a very low tolerance for it. There is an incident that the film does include, which was actions taken by an individual that persisted over a series of years that were both happening online and offline. And I would say for the advice, it's really leaning into your support network of people that you trust and that you care about, because we live in a world that's very connected but also very disconnected. And the meaningful experiences and the sense of empowerment that I've really found in my life is by learning whose opinions to listen to and whose opinions to kind of let roll off my back and know they exist, but you can't satisfy everyone. But as far as when we go through challenging times with people who are really hurting us. I think that really believing in who we are matters. And this incident happened when I was quite young, and I was being targeted by someone quite a bit older than me as well. And I'm glad that it's a part of the film, because I think it's a really human and real vulnerable issue that should be addressed head on.
Absolutely. And you talked about being who you are. Who are you? How would you talk about yourself?
That's a great question too, because I would say that climbing is a huge part of my identity. I also am an entrepreneur and a speaker and a writer and an avid climate activist. I really believe in protecting the places that we love to recreate and the places that are so vital for our planet to exist and to thrive. And I like to think, I am a positive person doing my best. Like, identity is a subject that's a big part of the film, as well as it follows me growing up in even just the vignette of the 4 years that we were filming.
Well, I'm definitely excited for the world to see that part too, because, with athletes, we see a lot of what they do. Like, we'll see you climb, right? But we don't really often get to see the behind the scenes of everything. Yeah, we see what's on social media, but like, this is an in-depth look. So I'm really excited for everybody to see that. And when little girls watch this, what do you want them to take away from it? Like that little girl who wants to be a rock climber, or just a climber in general. What do you want her to take away from your film?
I want her to feel empowered to pursue whatever it is that sets her heart on fire, and to feel limitless, and to feel like she can do whatever she wants to do, because it's true.
It's absolutely true. But I will say this, your sport in particular, it is male dominated. Like there's a lot of men obviously doing the sport. How would you tell someone to navigate that when they feel like they're the only woman doing what they're doing?
Yeah, climbing is one of those sports that's the parity between what men are able to accomplish and what women are able to accomplish, there actually is quite parity. And what's really interesting about that non-existence of the delta in performance is that it can lead to a challenge on fragile egos. And I think that as a woman being in a sport that's male dominated, I've certainly faced a lot of criticism of people who are scared of change, or scared of someone who looks different entering the sport and doing things that maybe he can't accomplish, or the sport changing. And I think that what's really, really important across the board, across every single industry, is representation. And when we have representation of people doing things that we can look up to and say, hey, I can be like her and I can do that too, that's when real change and real progress in the industry of sports, but also business, but also every single, aspect of the workforce can exist. And I think that women supporting women really matters too. Traditionally, in the outdoor industry, there's been a scarcity mindset model, because there isn't a lot of money involved in the outdoor industry, specifically in climbing. And people have seen, like, if this woman or if this man gets this sponsorship, then what does that mean to me? Instead of looking at it with abundance of, hey, this for my career, I got pushed back for even working with corporate companies and bringing them and welcoming them into climbing. But now in today's landscape, I see the next generation of climbers really empowered and supported by these same companies, because there's a path and because they exist and because there's interest. And I think that if we were to broaden that to women in sports in general, like the media coverage, the attention, the every which way that we can bring the puzzle pieces together and make a future of representation of seeing more people of that look different in front of this, of whatever, industry it is. It's really important.
Well, you talked a little bit about the rise of women's sports, and it definitely is on every level, and I absolutely love it. But when it comes to climbing, what do you think can be done to even improve the promotion of it even more?
I think that this film is a really great step in that direction of coverage of what women are doing. And I'd love to see this film lead into coverage of more female athletes doing really epic things in the adventure outdoor space. Because I know so many friends that are other female athletes in different sports, whether it's mountain biking or running or other climbers, who are told, hey, you don't look like a mountain biker, or you don't look like a runner, or you don't look like a climber. And the reality is they are. Like they may not look like whatever that traditional appearance of a mountain biker, runner, or rock climber may look like, but these women are doing incredible feats, and we need to redefine how we categorize what these athletes look like, because they can also look like badass women.
Absolutely. And you talked about this film being one of the ways to show that. When I was watching the trailer specifically, there was one part where it looked like, and I don't know if this is the case, but it looked like you were on the side of, a rock, a mountain, a rock, and you had just accomplished something, but then you got emotional. I don't know if you remember the part that I'm talking about, but it just looked like you took a deep breath, and then you could see that you got this emotion coming over you. Like, how many times does that happen when you're doing these amazing things and accomplishing what you're accomplishing? Because you're always going after something. You're always going after the next thing. How often does that emotion happen? And also, like, can you enjoy the things that you accomplish when you're so ready to go to the next thing and preparing for the next climb?
I think that staying in the emotion of when you accomplish something that you don't know if it's possible or not for you is really important, because life is moving for all of us in a very fast pace. And I think that sitting in failure and sitting in our success is really important, because feeling emotions and feeling that absolute bliss of accomplishing something that you didn't know if you could do or not, and then also feeling the raw emotion of what it takes to get there, and reliving those moments of darkness and uncertainty and of pushback and setbacks and all of that, it does bring out the rawest of emotions. And what I set out to achieve with the team on this film at HBO and Red Bull and Breakthrough Films is really, we are trying to capture the human experience, and in doing that, be as real and vulnerable as possible, because that, I think, is what I connect with when I see people's real struggles and their real emotions. And it's not all, sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of, and cliche to say, blood, sweat, and tears that go into making magic happen. And I think that we're all looking for that challenge in our lives and what makes us feel super alive. And for me, that's come in the form of climbing, and it's come in the form of new pursuits now as well. But that human experience is what we set out to share.
Well, we're definitely going to check out your human experience on Here to Climb on June 18th. Before we go, we like to always get in a little rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. So I'm just going to start with an easy 10. We'll just get through them really quick.
Easy 10.
You're like, easy? I don't think so. I've been doing this all day. So one thing that you can't live without on a climb.
My climbing shoes.
Yeah, you definitely need those. Best part of a climb.
The partner. Your
Yeah,
partner.
you definitely need the partner as well. Listen, crucial. When I was doing my research, I was like, thank God for the partner. Like,
I know. Literally keeping your life alive.
yes. Yes, we need that. We need that. Favorite climb you have ever done?
That's so hard. I have so many. Maybe I'll say Mora Mora in Madagascar.
Okay, not a bad one to say. I'm sure it was amazing. Like, not many people can say that. Your list is just wild. What about the worst climb you've ever done?
Um, the climb in Sao Tome, which is featured in the film.
Just listen. Light flex, light flex. Okay. Favorite type of rock climbing?
I would say free climbing.
Okay, what?
Actually, I would say deep water soloing. Deep water soloing is kind of like an extension over, but you're climbing these big cliffs. But if you fall, you have no rope. You fall into the water.
So
Which
that's your favorite, that you just fall into the water. Okay, okay, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. That would terrify me, but I love that you love it, and that's why who you are. You know, that's why you are who you are. Um, one climb you haven't done yet that you want to do.
I have a specific climb that I really want to do on El Capitan in Yosemite.
Okay, we look forward to that because I already know you're going to do it. You've done everything else, so.
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those like big audacious goals that you don't know, but I'll try.
No, it's done. I'm claiming it. So, favorite meal to prepare for a climb?
Well, I always made my own bars, so I would say like my bars are what I eat often on climbs. Now they're packaged called Sen bars, but I eat a lot of rice. Oh, I was just past a Sen bar. These are what I would eat.
Come on, send. I love whoever passed that to you too. They were like, get this in here, get this in here. So what about your favorite meal after a climb? Because I would imagine that'd be a little different.
Yeah. I I love Thai food after a big day out climbing. I love sushi. I have celiac disease, so I love a good gluten-free pizza.
Listen, come on, gluten-free pizza. After a climb, I'm sure it does hit a little differently after
Yeah,
all the stuff.
depends where you get the gluten-free pizza from, because some are hit or miss, but like I can name some spots. They're good.
Okay. Well, listen, we want those spots, so you can name those on your social media, and we'll hit that up, and we'll go to those spots. So here's something that we like to get from everyone. It's a word of advice to women in 7 words or less.
You never know until you try.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And this is the last question. The Olympics are this summer. What sport or athlete are you most looking forward to watching?
I'm really excited to see Brooke Rabatou and Natalia Gross compete in climbing.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to that. And we're looking forward to your film, Here to Climb, June 18th. Thank you so much for joining us, Sasha. It was awesome. And can't wait to watch your film.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for supporting the film, too.
Honestly, just so inspirational in just a multitude of different ways. I mean, there's so much to dissect from that conversation, but if you had to pick the biggest takeaway from your conversation with Sasha, what was it for you?
You know, it was the words that she said, you'll never know until you try. And think about everything that she's accomplished. And when she was small, I believe she said in the documentary that she was at her brother's, because we had a screener. She was at her brother's birthday party, and there was rock climbing, and she got up there and she tried it, and it just blossomed into this amazing career where she inspires people every day and has accomplished so much in a sport that really doesn't even want to include her. So just simply trying the thing that you are scared of to try could blossom into this career into a life and into living exactly what you want to do, but you cannot do that until you try. So I think that just really like put everything in a bow of what we talked about, is like none of that would have happened if she just didn't try.
Yeah,
And I think about that in my life. I'm like, girl, what are you sleeping on that you
I
just
love
have been
that.
too scared to do? So
I love that.
yeah.
I think that's a point of reflection for so many of us. And I hope that all of our listeners really reflect and figure out what it is that you're afraid of and what could you possibly do to conquer that fear. So that was amazing. I love that.
Absolutely. I love it too. So make sure that you watch her documentary. It premieres on the 18th and on HBO Max. It's going to be one that you will not want to miss for sure.